welcome to this edition of Brookline Hub In-Depth. I'm your host, Harvey Bravman. I'm a video producer, filmmaker, and publisher of the nonprofit online publication BrooklineHub.com. We'll be coming to you with impactful interviews on the important people, organizations, and subject matters that affect the Brookline community. I'm here with some of the members of Sports Bonanza, a Zoom group that started at Brookline High School, and that I'm fortunate enough to be a guest on. And this was an initiative that was started by Paul Epstein and John Ortiz, who are social workers at the high school. And we also have guests from Brookline High School, Isaac Brendan. Is it Brendel?
Brendel, yeah.
Brendel, sorry. And Radley Theolian. Correct, Radley?
You got it right.
Awesome. I'm going to start right with you, Paul. You've been a social worker at the high school for a long time. And tell me a little bit about the unique challenges that have faced students during the COVID era.
I like to say I've been a social worker for such a long time. It's longer than any of my students have been alive. Or you could also say I've been a social worker since Harvey turned 50. Okay. The pandemic has changed everything that we thought we knew about high school and adolescence. Sometimes it takes a pandemic to fire the synapses in your brain as a youth worker and make you realize, think of an idea that you probably should have thought of years ago and conceptualized and actualized. But it took a pandemic for John and I to say, hey, I think we need to get a creative way schemed up to get kids talking and socializing, albeit through a screen, yes, but in the evening during out of school time, that has nothing to do with school, academics, algebra, chemistry, or English. And that was the Sports Zoom. Should have thought of this idea decades ago. Would have had years and years of enjoyment because, and here's the key thing I want to say, the Sports Zoom has been the highlight of my year. And I think I speak for some of the young men on the Zoom and women that I think it's been one of the highlights of their year too. So it's about building community in the toughest of times through a mutual love of shooting the breeze about sports.
So I'm on the Sports Bonanza too because you invited me, and I originally agreed to do it to support you because I'll support anything that you do, Paul. But it's become the highlight of my year too. And every once in a while I have to miss it for mostly medical reasons, but it's the one thing I don't want to miss besides dinner. John Ortiz, you're a social worker at the high school, but you've, what a way to start your Brookline High School career during COVID. And, you're working with kids that first you hadn't even met yet, right?
Right.
Tell me a little about what your year has been like.
I guess the overall, the one word that would capture everything is like transition and just the adjustments to a new school, new district, new students, new families, new colleagues. And it's definitely been, it's been as challenging, without COVID, as you can imagine. And then with COVID has been just that extra layer of like, wow, this is like, it's a huge challenge. I've been blessed enough to to get to know a lot of the students at the school. I've lived in Brookline for about 20 years. So I'm very familiar with the community, and I actually did my first year field placement under the supervision of Paul. And that was like about 14 years ago. So it's kind of like full circle for me to be back, working with Paul as a colleague and continuing to learn from him and learn from all my other colleagues and get to know, my new students and their families, and get like a little more, how would you say, like embedded in the community, so to speak. So it's been definitely, ups and downs trying to figure out how to adjust personally, outside of school. But I've definitely had like super support from my colleagues trying to get adjusted to in-school stuff. And then the students are just so amazing that I'm just, I'm honored every time I get a chance to build a relationship with any one of them. So,
Wow. And just quickly, what's your favorite sport teams? Do you have any?
uh, my favorite sports teams are one Celtics. I would say one Celtics, one Yankees is pretty much like they're very like I'm a diehard Yankee fan because I'm from Brooklyn, New York, born and raised. And then Larry Bird was my favorite player back in the late '70s, early '80s, and I definitely have been an outlier rooting for the Celtics coming from New York. Since back then, I would get made fun of, and all my friends were Knicks fans, and so on and so forth. But I also root for the Washington football team. And so I have like the weirdest kind of sports rooting habits you can probably imagine.
Isaac, so I see you wearing your New York Islanders hat, so we know where your loyalties lie. But tell me a little about what this year has been like for you as a student at the high school. That's you've been undercover with COVID, and a little about that and what this group, the Sports Bonanza, has been like for you.
Yeah, well, thanks first for having us, Harvey. It's great, and I'm glad it's going well. This is a Brookline Hub thing for you. I know you work very hard on it. It's been a very different year for sure. Like since last March, so almost a year ago, it's when everything got shut down. And at first, it was kind of just a nice little break from school and be home. But as it got worse and just there became less and less to do, and school was remote, it was hard at first, and now it's kind of like seems weird to even set foot in the school again, without masks, without social distancing. But I think the year has been challenging. I think at first it was a lot of screen time. I don't think any of us were used to that, being in classes like we would be in a normal school year, or just everything was online. And it's still a little bit weird. It's obviously we've all gotten used to it, and we have to adapt because this is the reality of the situation. But it's definitely been challenging. And the Sports Bonanza is just something that every Thursday night you look forward to. And, it's a new guest every week. And we just have great conversations, and it's a pleasure to be with the guys on it. Every single one of these guys I really like and have tremendous respect for.
Isaac, I'm just going to follow that up with, so I've been working on an initiative called the Brookline Youth Awards now for 11 years. And so I've interviewed a lot of students, and, it's not uncommon for a student to talk about a group they're in, some extracurricular activity, whether it's a social justice group, it's sports, it's almost anything. And, they talk about how much they love the people that they're in the group with, and, how it's this bond between them, and you could just, it's palpable. And it takes me back to when I was in high school, and you're starting to get, adapted to organizing socially and interacting with each other socially. And then to have that whole thing ripped apart. I have no idea what that was, by the way, but to have that whole thing ripped apart, and suddenly you can't be like in the presence of the kids that you want to hang out with. Was that like just a really hard adjustment for you, or? What,
Yeah, I think so. I think, like I was saying, the school stuff, it's just what we have to do. And as time went on, you get used to it. Sometimes it's nice not having to get up so early in the morning. You can sleep a little bit extra, but seeing people through a screen, it's much different. And it definitely got tough to not see friends for a while and just FaceTime and text because that's very different. And you could not do the activities that we could before COVID. And I just think that something like this, it's not in person, it's far from in person, it's over Zoom, the same way we all communicate nowadays. But I think there's a different feel because it's just a place where everyone could unmute and everybody can talk, and there's like a very nice community feel. It's you have a lot of the same people every week, but you also have new people coming, and I hope that we're welcoming to those people, because I'm sure we are, because a lot of people have come back. But yeah, and I love it, and I think it's definitely the highlight of my week. And obviously Paul and John are two very busy guys, and they do a lot for everybody else, and to put this together is very nice of them.
Radley, now you're a student at Mass Bay Community College, correct?
Yep. I'm a student at Mass Bay Community College right now, studying broadcasting and journalism.
So how is the pandemic affected you personally, in terms of how you would have, in what you envisioned it would be like to attend Mass Bay compared to the reality of it?
Well, for me, it was tough. At school, I'm really like a social person. I like to talk to people in front of them. I'm a social butterfly. But once the pandemic hit, it's just like it felt like the world just like stopped, because you're not seeing the same people that you're seeing again and again. It's from FaceTime, which is different. Like, I imagine it like this: you being in a classroom, talking to other students in the classroom, and say if you did a homework assignment and you're talking to that person across from you saying, "Did you understand that homework last night that you worked on?" And they respond. So I think of it like that, just starting a conversation up. But right after the pandemic hit, it's just like you're staying home, and it's like screen time as well, like a lot of screen time, and you're just trying to see where you put yourself, because it's just a lot. I just feel like me not being at school, being able to socialize with other people and just to talk to them, share like a day with them is different. So I just feel like if I were there at school, it would have been a lot better too.
How is tuning in or jumping on Zoom every Thursday evening to take part in the Sports Bonanza? How has that affected your weeks since you started doing it?
When I started doing it, it feels great. Actually, I really enjoy it. Just learning the experience of hearing other people's opinions about sports is really amazing. The Sports Bonanza is really cool because it gets me involved like in different sports that I'm trying to learn, new sports, and just hearing people out, their opinions and their different take on different things. So I love it. That's just the highlight of my day. Every Thursday, I'm on it.
That's awesome. One of the great things about it, and I wouldn't even say it's the best thing about Sports Bonanza. To me, the best thing is us laughing together and joking with each other. I mean, to me, those are priceless moments. But Paul, one element that you've added to this, which is incredible. I mean, it is better to be on Sports Bonanza Zoom than it is to listen to WEEI or Sports Hub, because they do not have the same guests who are as honest. Especially, they don't have those kind of guests anyway, but certainly they don't have the ones that interact with people the way the guests that you brought in. Tell me a little about, or tell us all a little about the guests that you have brought into the Sports Bonanza since it started.
Sure, and you guys will have to help me remember all of them because we've had so many incredible ones and I don't want to forget. But before I talk about the guests, I want to talk about the star of the Sports Bonanza, the stars, I should say, which is the students. So we are all sports nuts. I mean, why else would you come on the Sports Bonanza? It'd be a little bizarre if you weren't a sports fan. We live and we breathe sports. We consume sports, the matches and games. We also consume the analysis of the games that's on radio and TV. So we watch PTI, we watch Sports Center, we listen to the 2 sports radio stations in Boston. And guys, am I right that sometimes we watch and we say, you know what, I could do better than these guys. I could give a better analysis. I could make smarter comments. Well, this is our chance. I always joke with my colleagues, like I have finally fulfilled my lifelong dream of having my own sports talk show. Now we've got this. So we have our own sports talk show. We can start trying to be the commentator, the analyst, the color guy. And it's just could not be more fun. But we do bring another wrinkle each week when I surprise you guys with the guests. So some of them are household names that anyone in Boston, sports fan or not, would know, like Dan Shaughnessy. I mean, he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame as a sports writer. We've had a guy who might end up in the same place in Cooperstown. My brother Theo Epstein has been a guest. We've had just about every sports writer of note that works for the Globe or the Herald, whether they cover the Patriots. We've had the play-by-play guy of the Patriots on the radio, Bob Sosi. He was incredible. We've had print media guys. Last week, for example, we decided a long overdue conversation. We really needed to get down into the weeds of analyzing what is wrong with our beloved Celtics because they were bumbling and stumbling along sub 500. I think are they back over 500, guys? I think they are. But they were 2 or 3 games below. And I said, guys, 45 minutes on the Celtics. Let's go. We got 2 incredible journalists, John Tomasi and Brian Robb in. And the level of discourse about, you know, the brand of basketball that was being played, the problems, the lowlights, the highlights, it was definitely on par with anything I've read or seen locally or nationally. Incredible discussion.
Yes. I think you've missed a few too. I mean,
Kevin Euclid, someone on the chat just reminded me. He was an amazing guest early on. We forgot about him.
Yes. And he supported one of my takes, so he was my favorite. But anyway, I have something that I want to get to, but before I do that, we've actually even sort of, you know, this for some of the people, most of the students that jump on this, they just love sports, and like Paul and John and myself, it's not their career or not what they want it to be their career later. But like Isaac and Radley, haven't you? I know for you, Isaac, this is what you want. You want your career to be in sports. Tell us a little about that.
Yeah, so ever since I was a little kid, and I love sports. You know, some of my best memories from childhood are just throwing a ball with my dad, and my grandfather is no longer with us. But I think just everything that I've dreamed of in my career, and I hope I'll be able to live that someday, is offered on the Sports Zoom. So it kind of went from me not having a lot of people to talk to at school about sports, and obviously there are a lot of sports fans, but it's very tough to find the person that's willing to be as passionate and talk to you about it, and especially when there's not much time and it's kind of awkward to approach people and have a sports conversation. So the Sports Bonanza, it's kind of moderated by Paul, but everybody contributes and everybody talks, and there are a lot of people that I haven't ever met, and I hope to meet when we're back in person at some point. But you know, just talking to people, and it's not awkward whatsoever. I remember the first time it was seeing all these faces on the screen. Could have been a little overwhelming for some people, but from there it was just it was great. And it was, you know, ever since I was a little kid, I would just, you know, stage shows and in my room just pretend I was Don Imus or Joe Beninga or something like that on the radio. And Paul knows I'm a huge fan of John Dennis, who was on WEI. So I would just imitate these guys in my room, and I think my parents probably thought I was a little crazy, but it's so much fun. And, finally I found the people that are as passionate about as I am, and we just talk and we schmooze. So it's great. And I enjoy it. And I think a lot of other people do.
Isaac, now you sound like Steve Summers with the schmooze. But I will point out an anecdote that to me just captures what the Sports Bonanza Zoom is all about. Is like a couple weeks ago, it was pre-Super Bowl. We were talking about the big game between the Chiefs and the Bucks. We probably spent parts of 3 or 4 shows on that because we were all just so excited. Isaac one time decided to put forth his theory that Patrick Mahomes, what did you call him? The most overrated player in the NFL or something like that? I believe you had him ranked as the 10th or 11th best quarterback in the league. Is that right? About right, Isaac?
I mean, I like not right now, but I like building my franchise around because some people I listen to are still in college.
Yeah. Okay. So Harvey, could you just please remove him from the Zoom right now? Just remove Isaac, please. We were supposed to ban him back when he said that, and we gave him a reprieve. But I mean, this is the type of thing that goes on, and everybody's got their team. Gareth, who may join us later, he's a Pittsburgh Steeler maniac. And, God forbid anybody say anything bad about the Washington football team. John would get quite upset. And Radley brings his soccer knowledge. And Radley predicted the Super Bowl perfectly well. Look at his soccer jersey with the Revolution. I famously said the Chiefs were going to win by 3 touchdowns. So I had a little egg on my face. But this is the type of back and forth that we love on the Sports Bonanza.
The best part is it's a real sports discussion. And if it's going to be a real sports discussion, then you have to be totally unsupportive of each other. Yeah, the only thing that we remember is the takes that one of us got wrong.
That's right.
Got it wrong. Someone got it wrong. If our favorite team loses, that's the only thing we talk about. We never say, well, that was a great prediction. You really got that right. All we do is just like just get on each other for the
You're right, Harvey. You got to come with bravado. You got to come with gusto. Don't let a lack of knowledge, a complete lack of knowledge, stop you from having a hot take. Like, for instance, when Isaac brings up hockey, I haven't watched a complete hockey game since the Bruins were last in the Stanley Cup. Does that stop me from our counterpoints and arguing Isaac that he's wrong, that the Bruins are going to beat the Islanders? No, I'll go right in there, even though I know nothing about hockey.
If knowledge of sports was a prerequisite, none of us would be on it.
It's also like me coming from Brooklyn, New York, is very reminiscent of the conversation at the barbershop. When you're at the barbershop and you're getting your haircut, everybody's talking, oh, Michael Jordan's the best. No, Magic Johnson, blah, blah, blah. And, the barbershop, the park, the corner, like all those conversations are happening just like it's happening on the Zoom.
And I'll tell you what, it's not just the sports that we get on each other about. For example, John, you opened your big mouth. So now I'm going to remember when you first came on the Zoom the first couple of times, it seemed that each week, John would find a way to weave in a story about his own high school baseball career back in New York. So for a while, we were just teasing him, saying, okay, John, would you like to tell us about that time you got a game-winning base hit? So we get on each other.
Right.
The only thing that the last 20 people who have been elected into the Hall of Fame have in common is that they all played in high school with John.
Right. That's right.
Bradley, I want to just jump on with you just to make sure I got this right, because we don't talk, we all just jump on and don't really like talk about our out of sports experiences. But so you said you're majoring in journalism, and is sports like the direction you're going in, or is it another part of journalism? Or
I want to be a sports broadcaster on ESPN someday. That's been a dream since I was a little kid, and I always dreamed about it, watching like Stephen A. Smith, Jalen and Jacoby. And so just seeing those people do great things, just by watching them, seeing what they could do, and helps me improve to show like what I could really do and make an impact and make a difference too. But not only that, I just love sports like in general. I just love the different types of sports, to soccer, basketball, football, baseball, all types of sports. I just want to just make sure for all the people who are watching this, in order to fulfill your dream in life, It's not only about you succeeding in life, but knowing that you could do it. And the only belief is yourself and your family too. But if you believe in it, you could do it. Anybody could do it. They just got to have the value to take it to the next step and the next level.
Bradley, what you say is so important, and so let's veer over in that direction for a little bit. Sports has so much to offer, and I know the people who aren't in sports or who aren't fans like us, talk a lot about how, it doesn't mean anything. It's just fantasy stuff. It's like reality TV or something. But you guys talk a little about the lessons that sports can teach you, the importance of practicing, of preparing, and also the importance of, if you lose, there's another game. That you can pick yourself up when you've been knocked down. That it's just a matter of you standing up at the end. Why don't you guys just all just sort of?
I'd love to chime in on that, Harvey. I mean, to me, it's been said many times, but sports is one of the few, I think, fewer and fewer areas of society that can be a great unifier and cross divides, where people don't often spend quality time together in the joined pursuit of anything. So I think it plays out in a double parallel process way. You might have a sports team at, let's say, the high school level, and there's definitely going to be kids on that team that would not cross paths otherwise. Maybe they're at different level classes. Maybe they're from different parts of the town. Maybe they have no shared interests other than that soccer team that they're on. And the hope there is that if at least a friendship doesn't develop, maybe just a mutual respect and kind of a teammate relationship would hopefully develop. So that's one area where sports is the great unifier. The other area, of course, is on the consumer side. Like, we are friends. We are all friends on the Sports Zoom because we spend Thursday nights together from 6 to 7, and we shoot the breeze and we tease each other and we laugh like you read about. So sports, I don't think we'd be friends, frankly, if we didn't have this opportunity to come together and talk sports. I'm sure glad we did.
Yeah, one of the students that I interviewed a few years ago for the Youth Awards, he came here from El Salvador, I believe, and just excruciating experience. So, somehow his family gets him out of El Salvador. His mother's supposed to follow right behind him, but because of the roadblocks, he had to wait 5 years. So he didn't see his mother for 5 years. And he was a star, one of the stars of the Brookline High School soccer team, and his soccer coach was the one that wrote his nomination to get a youth award. But he talked about the language of soccer and this international language where it was really hard for him to communicate personally, because of his trouble at first with the English language. He was new here. But how not only did he get to be friends with people because they were doing something together they liked, other student athletes got to learn a little about him, actually, as a human being. Would he sacrifice for his teammates? Would he play hard? Would he pass the ball? Would he be a good teammate? And, these things, there's a beauty in sports, isn't there? There's also a beauty, Isaac, in having like 150 pieces of clothing that are all like that you bought at a sports souvenir shop, isn't it? Tell us about your clothing collection.
Yeah, so ever since I was like a kid, I've been a huge New York sports fan. This is all passed down by mostly my dad, who grew up a diehard fan on Long Island. And he would just give me these old shirts to wear to these games. And he collects the stuff too. So he hasn't lost a thing. And we're lucky that our grandma's a hoarder and doesn't throw out a thing. But just looked through this stuff, and he's got so many Sports Illustrateds, and I just developed a passion for it. My friend introduced me to sports card collecting a while ago, and I kind of just wanted something I was passionate about, and I found that it was collecting, and then I enjoy it. So I was just in the Islanders team store one day, and I saw this very nice jacket that I liked, and it happened to be made by Starter, and it was a gift for my dad. It was around the holidays, and I just decided that I really liked it, and I kind of had this interest for jackets. So going around to these yard sales and eBay and Poshmark and all these stores, I just developed this interest for it. And yeah, and now it's led to, all sorts of clothing and cards and signed pucks and a lot of autographs, and I picked that up, and it was very similar to what my dad liked. And I just enjoy it, and I think it's kind of escape. It's just something, that I find that I'm very passionate about, rather than, it's just like talking sports. You can never get enough of it, and there's always something else to talk about or collect.
And it's memories too, isn't it? I remember the first time I walked in Fenway Park, and so much of it has to do with your relationship with some member of your family. My dad is passed away because of my age. He would have to be 130 if he was alive. People don't live that long, but he, I have all of these memories of my dad, and so many of the best ones are about sports. And people have different family setups, so it's not always a dad, it's someone else that you look up to as a parental figure. But if you guys, Bradley, do you have any experiences that sort of resonates?
Yeah. My dad's actually also too. He's a big soccer guy too, as well. He used to play a lot of soccer in his country in Haiti, and he's the one who taught me the game of soccer just by when I was a little kid, just teaching me the skills of how to do like different moves and everything, and also too just a love of the sport and just to understand the game a little bit better. My dad wasn't a professional player, but he was able to play pickup games here and there with his friends, and it was cool to see because he was able to teach me some moves that I didn't know, and teach some moves back in the day and now into what it is today. Like just to teach me a couple of moves and different things about the game that I didn't know before.
That's awesome. You guys, Leslie, I mean, Paul, you grew up playing ball with your brother, and the great Leslie Epstein, your dad, is a huge sports fan.
Absolutely. We grew up less than a mile from Fenway Park, in the days when you could just decide on the spur of the moment after dinner to walk down and get a standing room ticket. And fortunately, you couldn't do that anymore. Theo's partly responsible to blame for that. We did. And our backyard was Amory Park. We played all kinds of soccer and football there. Sometimes we were too lazy to go to Amory Park, so we just played on the street, on our street, Parkman Street, and we invented many games there. There's a below street level parking lot there of a medical building parking lot. We invented a game there called Tenny Ball, which was essentially stickball or baseball, but instead of a baseball bat, you used a tennis racket. So we were just hitting the ball a mile over 11-story tall buildings. There was the back of the Holiday Inn was right field, and it was clad in blue vinyl siding, so that became the Blue Monster instead of the Green Monster. And then the greatest game of all was gutter ball. That was soccer, Radley, played with a tennis ball. Each goal was on either sidewalk across was a gutter. So if you scored a goal, the tennis ball disappeared down the gutter, and you had to get a new ball or the game was over.
Oh, so you try to keep it. Yeah, I get it.
That's called gutter ball. So you had tenny ball, gutter ball, all of it.
That's why that's why the Brookline water system is poisoned, because Paul and his brother have all those tennis balls in there.
Oh, it's clogged with dozens, hundreds of balls.
Oh yeah. This has been such a great discussion. One thing I just want to throw in, just also civil rights, social justice. Nobody wants Jackie Robinson playing for them until he starts stealing home a few times and, leads the league in hitting or whatever he did. And you know, Michael Jordan, how many walls he broke, people loving him that ordinarily would not have loved him for the sole reason of the color of his skin, and how that can bridge gaps. And that's really what we are as a group, right? Like everybody is, from a totally different background is my what I'm getting from it.
Yes, I think you're right, Harvey, that you can't play or enjoy sports in a vacuum because sports is part of the larger society. And that has spilled over into the Sports Bonanza. I think it was just maybe last week that I called a little time out in the Sports Zoom, and we were talking about Tiger Woods. And I hope I didn't sort of preach too much or become too didactic, but I talked about his car accident, and I talked about to our teen audience, the kids on the Zoom that are either getting their driver's permits or licenses. I think I tried to hammer home a point that you guys, there's a lesson to be learned there, that driving an automobile at high speed or at any speed is a dangerous thing to do, and it has to be approached with a healthy dose of respect and always safety foremost in your mind. So we talked about texting and driving, and someone else made the point of drinking and driving or being under the influence. And then we've had amazing discussions on the Sports Zoom about charity in sports, and these athletes are making literally hundreds of millions of dollars in their careers. And could we fairly ask them to do a little more to help those less fortunate people in society that need programs and services? And I think we also talked about so many different things. I can't quite recall, but we always have a little injection of more serious, sort of weighty and meaty issues into the fun.
I remember my dad, so in the 1970s, late 1970s, I'm in college, earlier 1970s, I'm in high school, but it was a time in sports where only white people were quarterbacks. And it was not like the worst thing to say on TV, that the open question of whether blacks could be quarterbacks because did they have the intellectual capacity to be a quarterback. And I remember my father talking to us with, I remember tears in his eyes of just never believe that, never think that, never believe that. There's going to be a time when there will be black quarterbacks because there's no reason why they can't be. And that, these things that are in our society, that we have these beliefs that are so wrong, and sometimes in sports, people get to prove them wrong in ways that they may not otherwise have to. It sounds so stupid when you say it out loud, but we live in a world that is that petty sometimes.
And there are very important lessons that the older people on the Zoom, the Harveys, Johns, and Pauls on the Zoom, try to impart to the younger kids. Lessons like, enjoy yourselves now, because when you're older and you're married and you have a job, your wife is going to think it's so silly that you have all this sports knowledge in your brain. And it's very rare now that we get to bring it out. So on the Zoom, we can talk about what college John Elway went to. And the old guys on the Zoom know that it's, Isaac, do you know where John Elway went to college?
I do not off the top of my head, no.
Stanford. Now, John and Harvey and I knew that, but Isaac did not. So we get to teach some lessons here, right? And for example, I know what I was trying to remember about the social issues, Harvey. Like today I read an interesting article, I think it was in the Times, about a new basketball league that some entrepreneurs are starting. It's the company that's starting it is called Overtime Sports. Have either of the young guys on the Zoom heard of Overtime Sports? They are starting a league for high school players. They're trying to incentivize them to skip college basketball and go right into this league, either drop out of high school and play in the league at 16, or after they graduate high school. They're going to pay each one a minimum of $100,000 to essentially go pro and hopefully be scouted by either the NBA or another pro league as a next step after they play in this league. And then they're setting up a small college fund for those that don't end up making it. And that is just an example of a really rich topic that we could chew on in the sports Zoom and have different takes on. And it's, it's a meaty issue. It's not just about, 3-point shots and slam dunks. It's sort of about young people in society and the role sports might help them play to lift them out of a tough situation. So
another really important thing to know is that John Elway, when he was a quarterback at Stanford, they played at Boston College, and BC beat him. It was either 30-13 or 31-13.
Isaac, do you know what his second sport was?
Was it baseball?
Yes, it was. Very good. Wasn't he drafted by Isaac's Yankees and John's Yankees?
One final question before we wrap it up, just to you, Paul, because there's another group, Zoom group at the high school that you mentor, and tell us a little about that for any students at the high school or someone who may want to join that.
The Outdoor Adventure Club, Harvey?
Yes.
Yeah, another Zoom that is directly related to the pandemic. And I will say another Zoom that I should have thought of years ago and started even before the pandemic. So we've all been inside so much. We're missing the vitamin D from the sunshine. We're missing the human contact of walking through nature together. So we did start the Brookline High School Outdoor Adventure Club this year, and it's been, I already said that the sports Zoom is my favorite, and I didn't lie, but it's a very close second. So we've been able to manage to pull off some outings in the fall before COVID spiked in Boston. We did get shut down for a few months. Isaac has been on just about every outing that we've done. Some hiking. We've got mountain biking coming up. We've got intro to kayaking coming up. We're going to do an overnight trip if COVID allows before the school year gets out for the summer. So that has been just an amazing coming together of kids from different backgrounds, different situations, getting outside in a safe manner, enjoying each other's company and enjoying the natural world.
I tell you guys, I've gotten to meet one of the people on our Zoom, Henry Burrell, because we've honored them at the Youth Awards. And Paul and I have been friends for a long time. And I was just thinking the other day that I probably met 25 new people in the last 4 or 5 months, and I have no idea how tall they are. It's all like through Zoom, but this Zoom thing is great. But you guys are so great, and I've gotten feeling so close to all of you. I cannot wait till we can all be in the same place and laugh together, and without Zoom. But
watch a game together.
Watch a game together. I got a 65-inch TV, and it's missing you guys. It's like I got a 65-inch TV in like a 66-inch room.
I can't wait. I can't wait to shoot around with you guys and like toss the football around, kick the soccer ball around. Like I can't wait to do all that stuff.
Guys, thank you so much for being on the show, but more importantly, for being part of Sports Bonanza. And Paul, John, thank you so much for coming up with this. If anyone wants to be on Sports Bonanza, if you write to publisher at BrooklineHub.com, that's me. I will introduce you to the group. Thank you, guys. Take care. We'll see you next week.
Hi, my name is Danielle Myers of ADW Video Productions and BrooklineHub.com. BrooklineHub.com is a 501c3 nonprofit online publication dedicated to community building through local reporting and events. Brookline Facing Civil Rights was produced by our founder, Harvey Bravman. The film is about the experiences of African Americans who helped break the wall of segregation that existed in Brookline before the civil rights laws were passed in the 1960s. Last year, the film sold out the Coolidge Corner Theater and included a panel discussion on inclusivity. You can stream the film and the discussion on BrooklineHub.com in exchange for a donation to the Brookline Community Foundation's Safety Net Fund. You can also stream Soul Witness, a film that features interviews with Brookline Holocaust survivors conducted 30 years ago, on soulwitness.org.